Вітаю, обговоримо чергові вкиди та брехню держави-агресора.
Greetings. Let's discuss the next throw-ins and lies of the aggressor state. In recent days, reports from state propagandists and even Russian state authorities have become more frequent that the HIMARS rocket launch systems supplied to Ukraine by the United States of America have been allegedly destroyed on the territory of Ukraine. This information is not true, and the fact that it is a lie can be seen even in the very messages of the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation. They claim that the HIMARS launchers and transport loading vehicle was destroyed. In fact, HIMARS does not provide a loading machine, since the projectile block is loaded by the system itself. They do not provide any evidence of the destruction of HIMARS, but only publish a video taken from a drone, on which a truck is visible. In a few seconds you can see that something is burning on the ground. There is no evidence that it is HIMARS. Moreover, there is no evidence that it was filmed on the territory of Ukraine, and that the military equipment used by Ukraine was destroyed. The purpose of this throw-in is that the Russians are trying to sow despair with such messages, as well as to limit the supply of advanced Western weapons to Ukraine. Actually, the Russian propagandists themselves do not hide this. I would like to add that these HIMARS machines are usually accompanied by Western instructors and combat cards. I think that soon the Kiev regime will lose all the multiple launch rocket systems, which are delivered from overseas, claims the Russian military propagandist Podubny. In this way, he is trying to send a signal to the West. There is no need to send any heavy weapons to Ukraine. In turn, we reject these statements and repeat that no HIMARS MLRS were destroyed on the territory of Ukraine. Also, Russia continues to attribute itself non-existent military victories and the destruction of the Ukrainian military. The Ministry of Defense of Russia reported an airstrike on the positions of the Ukrainian army in Mykolaiv. Up to 200 military and foreign mercenaries were destroyed, reports the Russian propagandist Solovyov. This information is also not true, although Solovyov himself, in order to get fewer accusations of lying, claims that not 200 soldiers were killed, but up to 200 soldiers, and it can be several people. The report, published by the military media Zvezda, is also a lie. That a storage facility for Harpoon missiles transferred to Ukraine by NATO countries was destroyed in Odessa. This information is not true. The Russians destroyed the warehouse where furniture boards were stored. There were no missiles there. Meanwhile, Russia is trying to remove responsibility for the killings of civilians, including children, that occurred as a result of the attack on the Vinnytsia. In particular, one of the deputies of the State Duma, Andrei Gurulev, wrote a post about the fact that this attack was apparently staged by the Ukrainians themselves. Think about it. As a logical statement, he proves that Ukrainians themselves killed Ukrainians in Bucha. In support of this version, the Russian diplomat Mykola Platoshkin also posts, "The death of a child in Vinnytsia is another performance by the Nazis, and in general, Zelensky always bombs his cities when he runs out of money from the State Department. This is an absolutely primitive information dump, but it is designed for internal Russian consumption, which believes even in greater nonsense." Meanwhile, Russia needs to justify its actions on the territory of Russia itself. After all, numerous victims among civilians, in particular among children, cause more and more questions among the most ordinary Russians. Moreover, Russian propagandists are outraged that ordinary Russians do not support military rhetoric. They know a little about Russian propaganda channels that publish poetry to support the war that Russia has unleashed against Ukraine. Propagandist Zahar Prelepin writes about this. He is outraged that the Russians do not want to watch songs written in support of the war on YouTube. These novelties are information about nothing. He said he was outraged that Yulia Checherina's song called "The Red Army is the Strongest" got only 8,000 views on YouTube. The only thing that we can say is that sincere propaganda is primitive. The Russians can no longer listen to it. An example of how Russian propaganda lies and manipulates can be seen in how they covered the attack on Vinnytsia. In particular, as soon as this attack was made, Russian propagandist Margarita Simonyan stated that it was an attack on the House of Officers. According to her, there was a place of Nazis. After the footage of human casualties among civilians and children flew around the world, they changed their version. The Russian Ministry of Defense stated, "The command of the armed forces of Ukraine held a meeting with foreigners on the supply of aircraft in the officer's house. It was destroyed as always with high-precision missiles." It's all lies. There was no presence of foreigners and not a single meeting on the supply of air weapons was conducted. Meanwhile, Russia is trying to increase its presence in the occupied territories of Ukraine. In particular, the Zaporizhia Vestnik newspaper stated its publication in the Zaporizhia region. In the first issue, there is a portrait of Putin and the title, "We are together, we are one people." Thus, the Russians are trying to sow discouragement among the Ukrainians and persuade them to cooperate with the invaders. While for the Ukrainian armed forces and the Ukrainian political leadership, the counter-offensive and the liberation of these territories is a priority. Thus, the Russians are trying to reduce the willingness of the local population to cooperate with the Ukrainians in order to make this counter-offensive as non-effective as possible. Well, another lie from the Russian state resource Sputnik that the American embassy in Kyiv has stopped its work. The embassy building is closed, the staff is not present here. In fact, the absence of embassy staff at the workplace should not be surprising as it was Saturday. This is an information throw-in with the aim of sowing panic among the local population on the territory of Ukraine. The American embassy in Kyiv continues to work. The US ambassador is in Kyiv, and such fakes do not have any effect because they are very easily exposed. Thank you for your attention. Do not trust Russian propaganda resources, trust the official Ukrainian mass media, Ukrainian Teleson, the top political leadership and the armed forces of Ukraine. Glory to Ukraine!